Hello everybody, my name is Tariq Ramadan and today I'm going to present the comparative code structure analysis using deep learning for performance prediction paper. This work was done by Texas State University in collaboration with Lawrence Livermore National Lab.
Here is the outline of the presentation. First, we're going to start with the introduction and then discuss the proposed approach. Our goal is to enable instant feedback about performance during code development, but first let's pinpoint the problem. As we can see in the chart, most software development lifecycle contains multiple stages like planning, analysis, design, implementation, testing, and maintenance. Those stages focus purely on correctness but do not consider performance at all. So performance analysis can be done by two methods, which are static and dynamic analysis. Nowadays, most developers are doing dynamic analysis, but this process costs hours for data collection and analysis time. So let's do a comparison between static analysis and dynamic analysis to understand the difference between them better. In dynamic analysis, to get the dynamic information, we need to run the code multiple times, but it raises another issue. On which architecture are we running the code? So it requires running with hundreds of different configurations to get good understanding of performance. That takes days to collect and requires a human in the loop. Based on that, the cost of dynamic analysis is high. On the other hand, the static analysis uses information available during coding and also can detect errors and warnings. For example, unused variables, infinite loops, wrong syntax. So based on our goal, we need to predict performance before actually running the code so we can leverage the static analysis. The reason that no one has used static analysis to predict performance before because it is so challenging to extract useful information that can actually predict performance. So the rationale of our approach is to predict performance by a comparative approach, which is comparing two codes with each other. I will discuss the methodology in details later in this presentation. Our proposed approach consists of three main steps. First, we collect the data set and then we extract the static information from it. And using this information, we use machine learning to build the representation of the code into a feature vector. And then we do predictive analysis across the two vectors. We collected the data set from an online platform, Codeforces. Codeforces organize programming contests regularly, and each contest consists of a set of problems to which users submit their solutions. The data set contains several unique solutions to each problem, varying running time and memory usage, and the data set overall contained 4.4 million submissions. As a sample, let's take a look at the chart. So this is problem 4C, and as we can see, the minimum runtime is 86 and the maximum runtime is 4063. So we can see a lot of variations in the running time, and also each problem has a subgroup of algorithms. So problem 4C is based on the solution is based on hashing, and other algorithms like binary search and greedy depth first search and graphs. So as we can see from the table, there is a lot of variety in the submission, which a deep learning model can learn and build a reliable model on. There are a lot of information you can do static analysis on, like generated code, data flow chart, and abstract syntax tree. As we can see over here, the data flow chart keeps track of the data, whether it's a definition, reference, or evaluation point. On the other hand, the abstract syntax tree represents the code block in a tree structure. And by directly operating on abstract syntax tree, we gain important structural information about code while dispensing variations in code style. Our methodology consists of four main parts. First, the source code. We take two source codes and then we pre-process these two codes to extract the abstract syntax tree from the ROS compiler, and then we input those abstract syntax trees into the deep representation learning model to extract the node representation, and then we get the code representation, and finally we input the code representation to the predictive model, which will classify those inputs. For the deep representation learning, we built on techniques originally designed for natural language processing, giving the relevant nature between coding language and natural language. We chose the long short-term memory architecture for the model, specifically a tree-based approach. Tree-structured LSTMs is a significant deep learning architecture for processing tree-structured data with inferred hierarchy. So to understand the difference better, let's take an example. Over here we have Y3, and the inputs of Y3 is the X3 and the hidden state of the previous block. On the other hand, the tree-based LSTM over here on Y3, the input to the Y3 is all of its children hidden states. So in a tree-based LSTM, we can view the process of traversing through a tree as visiting a sequence of nodes as dictated by the tree structure. In order to explore the tree-based LSTM more, we implemented 3 different architectures and evaluated them. All of the 3 different methods have 3 layers, the differences between the hidden state and how they are traversing through the tree. So over here, the unidirectional 3 layer, we have the node, the hidden states going from the children to the parent, and then after 3 layers, we have the final representation. In the alternating, we have 1 layer going from children to parent, and then parent to children, and then back again children to parent, and we have the final representation. In the bidirectional, we have 2 levels, backward layers and forward layers, and all the backward layers, the hidden states are traversing through the parent to children, and in the forward layer from children to parent, and then finally we get the final representation. We evaluated the efficiency of proposed tree LSTM based on representation learning technique compared to more generic architecture, which is Graph Convolution Network. The GCN is a generalization of Convolution Neural Network CNN, but it takes a graph data structure as an input. The GCN applies semi-supervised node classification, which classifies each node of the tree to help decide the classification for the whole tree. The significant difference between GCN and tree LSTM is the information flow to each internal node. GCN leverages all neighboring nodes compared to tree LSTM that leverages knowledge of parent-child relationships. So far, we have discussed how to extract the code embeddings, and now let's discuss how do we classify those feature vectors in the predictive model. To understand our methodology better, let's take these 2 codes as an example. Over here we have C1, which is a nested loop, so the time complexity will be O of n squared. And on the other hand, we have C2, for loop and if condition, so the time complexity will be O of n. So our methodology takes these 2 codes, extract the abstract syntax tree of them, and then import the abstract syntax tree to the deep representation learning model to extract the code feature vector. And then this code feature vector we import it to the predictive model. The predictive model predicts based on if the first submission is faster, then we will classify it as class of 0. And if the second submission is faster or equivalent, then we will classify it as class of 1. And of course, for this situation, the second one is faster, so our model will classify it as 1. We ran many experiments, and here's our experimental setup. We used Google Cloud Platform, and we used a machine with 8 virtual CPUs, 30 GB of RAM, and 1 NVIDIA Tesla P100 GPU with a 16 GB of memory. We evaluated our data on GCN and LSTM models. We did the hyperparameter tuning using Optuna optimization framework. The most important parameters in the GCN were the number of convolution layer and the hidden layer size, and for the LSTM it was the hidden states. After running multiple experiments, we noticed that the unidirectional and bidirectional have similar results, but we chose to continue with the unidirectional due to its simplicity comparing to bidirectional, which requires more calculations and it's computationally expensive. As we can see in the generated box plot, we ran many experiments and created a model for each problem to get a deeper understanding of the effect of different submissions and the effect of each algorithmic group. And then we created the multiple problem set to test the generalizability of the model. The multiple problem set contains 10,000 submissions, which contains 100 randomly picked submissions from 100 different problems. Our evaluations of several deep embedding learning methods concluded that tree-based long short-term memory model can leverage the hierarchical structure of source code to discover latent representation and achieve up to 84% on individual problems and 73% on the multiple problems dataset in predicting the change in performance. So we conclude LSTM is better than GCN. We visualized the learned representation of an abstract syntax tree using T-disturbed stochastic neighbor embedding, TSNE. On figure A, we can see two-dimensional representation of the node embeddings. Green are operations, red are other expressions, blue are statements, yellow are literal values, and black are support nodes. 3LSTM model discovered that the string and character literal representation are closely related. Also, the model learns that plus plus and plus sign operators are close in nature, hence group them close. Since the for and while representation share similar value along a single axis, it indicates that the model can encode their similarities into the representation while still capturing their differences. On figure B, we have the two-dimensional representation of code embeddings. Each color corresponds to one of the problem sets, some similarities, but the different nodes along both axes are significantly different. Hence, they should get other representations. In the beginning of this presentation, we asked the question, is it possible to predict performance during code development? And the answer is yes, if we took a comparative approach and used deep learning to create a feature vector for each code. So for the future work, we can explore more pre-trained embeddings like BERT, GloVe, Code2Vec, and we can also explore other static information such as data flow graph, for example, and we can definitely do more complex experiments by getting more powerful GPUs. Thank you so much for listening, and if anyone have a question, I will be more than happy to answer it. Thank you.